Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I figured today I'll hop in real quick and do a things you don't want to know but I'll tell you anyways segment. I'm kind of toying with changing the name of this segment to something else, so if you guys have any thoughts, please comment down below. Not because I hate the name, it's actually because I love the name so much that I'm actually thinking about naming a podcast after this. I figured I'll change the name of this segment and then start a podcast under this name. I don't know. Anyways, so if you guys have any idea for what I should name the segment, let me know down below. But I wanted to hop on here real quick, and I think it's going to be a quick video today because I am having a hard time sitting straight up or just upright. I'm having a hard time being upright. If you guys have been keeping up on my vlogs, you'll know that I dislocated / herniated my disc. It's just been really tight, and I saw a chiropractor for it, but it's still kind of tense. I just didn't, like, it was fine after I saw the chiropractor, but then I went and did stuff. I feel like I undid what the chiropractor did. I'm in that position right now where I can't sit very long. So I thought I would just come on here real quick and answer a question or / comment. The other day, let me see if I could pull this up. So the other day, Victoria Culbertson left a comment on my video, The Most Dangerous Flu Medicine in Japan. It is so difficult for me to believe you dropped out of school in the 3rd grade. You are so articulate and know so many things. You must have self-educated yourself in your own college degree of life. And I thought that was really, really nice of her. And I also thought I would elaborate on the dropping out of 3rd grade. I technically did and I technically didn't. I would consider the end of my formal education to be up at until 3rd grade, but I did go to school here and then throughout, if I include college, probably between the time I was 3rd grade to about 22. Hold on, I gotta adjust. So what does it mean when I say I consider my education to be like 3rd grade level? I went to school like normal. I went to preschool, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade. In 3rd grade, I went to a school called New Life Academy here on Okinawa. We had this awesome teacher, like really sweet and amazing teacher, but then she ended up getting switched out with somebody else. And this teacher was awful. She was like borderline abusive. We were supposed to be reading and I wasn't really paying attention because I have ADD, so it's really hard for me to like focus. And I remember she grabbed my arm once and twisted it and pulled me out of my seat and threw me outside of the classroom. And this happened a couple times. Once my mom got wind of it, she pulled me out of school right away. So I only went up to, I think, my half of my 3rd grade year. So at the time, for some reason, they couldn't place me into the military schools on base, something to do with my dad and his military or like retirement stuff. And my mom didn't want to put me into a Japanese school. She was like, I don't want my daughter to be exposed to this almost factory lifestyle of, it's like copy and paste, everybody comes out the same. She wanted me to have the ability to just learn to be myself and embrace who I am and be creative and be an individual. And she thought Japanese schools would squash that. And so not being able to go to the military schools provided for military kids and my mom not wanting to take me to a Japanese school, then I was kind of in limbo for a while my mom found the right school that she wanted to put me in. There was a few schools that I did try, but I couldn't. And eventually I think my mom kind of gave up. My mom tried to homeschool me, but because she ran her own business, she didn't really have time to homeschool me. So I spent the majority of the day just making videos with our video camera at the time and writing stories and reading books and I don't know, and hanging out with my grandma. I did a lot of that. In the morning I would get up and then I would run over to my grandma's house and we'd hop on her little motorized cart and then just go on an adventure. That was kind of my life from the time I was 3rd grade to 7th grade. And then 8th grade came along and then we got the okay for me to attend Kadena High School, which is one of the schools on base provided for military children. Well, not high school, I guess it would be middle school. I was approved to go to Kadena Middle School. So I went and it was fun, I guess. I mean, I had a hard time adjusting to school life. My dad was really surprised that they put me into 8th grade and not made me go into 7th grade. But I guess when they tested me, because my reading and my vocabulary was so high, regardless of my math skills being low, they figured that I could keep up with the school curriculum just because I could read very well and I was articulate enough, I guess. They just put me into 8th grade after not going to school since 3rd grade. And it was fine. Like, they put me in remedial math, which was fine. But at the time, my parents were going through a divorce. I guess, you know, being a teenager, it was rough, right? Like, I was hormonal, I was super teenage angsty. I listened to Blink-182 and Simple Plan, and I walked around super emo. I would cry at everything. And so I couldn't really focus in school. Not because I didn't understand the subjects, but number one, I found it super boring. And number two, I wasn't trained, right? Like, I missed 4 years of schooling. I wasn't accustomed to going to school every single day and having to sit in class and listen to the teachers. So between that, everything that was going on at home, my teenage angst raging wild, this was around the time I started attempting suicide. And so I was in and out of mental hospitals throughout my 8th grade. I somehow barely managed to pass 8th grade by the skin of my teeth. And then came 9th grade. And 9th grade was pretty much the same as 8th grade. They put me in remedial math. I got put in regular classes. But because I was so depressed and I hated life so much and I hated people so much, I just kept wanting to end it. So even in 9th grade, I was in and out of mental hospitals. 8th grade and 9th grade, I finally got to go to school, but I screwed that over by just being a teenager who was struggling with life. Even when I wasn't in mental hospitals, I was pretty much just skipping school and not going to school. And yeah, school and I just never jived. And then in 10th grade, I had an opportunity to go live with my dad in the States for a little bit. He set me up with a school there in California, but that only lasted a month because my dad was on these particular like depression pills. It made him sleepwalk. And I'm not talking about like sleepwalking around the apartment. Like, he would leave the apartment and try to drive his car to like the gas station. Because of that, and I was afraid my dad would get into a car accident or really hurt himself, I would stay up until late into the night until my dad would officially fall asleep. So there was a lot of nights where my dad would get up and then he's like, I'm gonna go. And then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm coming with you. And then I would have to stop him from getting in the car and I'm like, hey dad, why don't we just walk instead? And then so we would walk to the gas station, buy a Slurpee, and then come back home at like 2:00 in the morning. A month or so into this, my dad one time opened one of our kitchen cabinets and he looked inside and there was like a shit ton of Slurpee cups just sitting in there. And he's like, where did we get all these Slurpee cups? And then I explained to him like what was happening, and they changed his medication, but by then I had missed so much of my first like month or two of school that I was like, I don't even want to go back. I'm so behind. And then I flew back to Japan because my dad was so much to handle, and that was a lot of pressure to put on somebody who was struggling with life herself. And then he ended up eventually moving back again anyways. And so by the time I was like 17, 18, I really, really wanted to go to a film school in New York City. But I was looking at the requirements and they were talking about needing a high school diploma and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, shit, like I barely finished 3rd grade. I don't have a high school diploma. And one of my mom's friends, whose husband is an American and their kid also was kind of in similar situations as me. He didn't go to school properly, so his dad found a homeschooling program that they could do like a correspondence homeschooling program. And so my mom signed me up for that. Even though I was 17 years old, they had me start from 9th grade curriculum. And because I was so motivated to go to New York City to this specific film school, I ended up completing 4 years worth of school in 2 years. So I think I officially got my high school diploma when I was 19 or 20. I think I might have been 19. I don't remember. It's been quite some time, but I got my high school diploma around the time I was 19 or 20. But even then, like, I feel like I didn't really deserve my high school diploma. I took all the classes that were interesting to me. Like, I loved history, I loved English, I loved psychology because I was taking psychology as one of the electives. I also took German, but I remember nothing of it. But they're like math and science and all that stuff that I didn't enjoy doing. I ended up outsourcing. I was paying people to do my work for me. I feel like I shouldn't even be admitting that, but I did. There was a Henry Ford quote that I had come across in one of my textbooks that said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but hire people who are smarter than you, focus on the things you're good at, and then hire out the things you're not very good at. And so I took that to be, well, let me take the courses that I'm good at, and then I'll outsource the ones I'm not good at. So that's what I did, and that's how I got my high school diploma. So I only did half the work to get that diploma. But to me, the goal wasn't for me to actually complete any kind of, like, I wasn't planning on learning anything. That wasn't my goal. My goal was just to get that piece of paper so that I could get into film school. So I do technically have a high school diploma. It was a weird journey to get there. And then I did eventually go to school, but I didn't get to go to the school that I wanted to in New York City because I ended up getting married and I ended up moving to California. And I did kind of toy around with college. Like, I struggled in college as well. Even though you have a little bit more freedom and you get to take the classes that you want in college, like the whole idea of having to retake English and science and math, I'm like, why am I doing this? If I had had a normal childhood, I would have already taken 12 years worth of this shit. So why would I have to do it again in college? Like, it made no sense to me. So even though I got to take the classes that I wanted to take, the fact that I had to still take mathematics and science and all these subjects that would have already been covered in 12 years of just elementary, middle, and high school was looming over my head. So I could not focus because I'm like, well, I could take all these fun classes that I want to take, but I have all these requirements that I have to make, and it just, I was like weighing the option and the cost, and I was like, it's just not worth it for me. I went to like a semester and a half of college, but by that time I had already decided on what I wanted to do with my life, which was start a business, and I had gotten an idea of what business I wanted to do, which ended up becoming my media business that I ran for 5 years. I was like, I don't want to spend the next 2 to 4 years spending all this money getting this piece of paper, so deuces. And I just left and started my own business. So yeah, my educational background is very, very different. It hasn't actually affected me as much as I think people thought it would. And a lot of it, I think, is because I haven't really gone after jobs that require a college degree. For me, I just never was in a position where I needed a bachelor's degree or some kind of college degree to have the work that I did. And I think a lot of it, though, is because I really wasn't looking to find a career. And I still am not. I've never been somebody who's looking for a career. I've always been somebody who's trying to build her own. And so I've never really needed a piece of paper that I could hand to somebody to impress somebody to give me a job. Not having a proper education, not having a college degree has never really worked against me. Now, this is not a PSA to drop out of school. Be like, hey, Kit dropped out of 3rd grade and she's, blah. I mean, let's be honest, at 32 years old, I'm a YouTuber working part-time for $9 an hour. Yes, I built a business for 5 years that generated me $3,000 a month, but I have a feeling that if I had gone to school and gone to college by now, I would have had a stable job with a better income. My life choices, definitely, not going to college, not having a proper education has made it a lot more, I wouldn't say difficult, just different. It's not a very stable path that I'm walking. I think my saving grace, though, was honestly the fact that I could read, because when I was a little kid, I was a very big reader. My dad instilled that in me. He was reading to me since I was a little baby and just continued to read to me as a kid. Like, I read Berenstain Bears, I read Goosebumps, I read, I read a lot. My room was filled with books. By the time I was 6 or 7 years old, I was reading my dad's books, like Stephen King and Dean Koontz and all of those guys. I think the first book I picked up was Jurassic Park. My first Stephen King book was right after that, when I was like 7, I think. I was 7 or so. I was reading Pet Sematary. And to this day, Pet Sematary is my favorite Stephen King book of all time. But I read a lot. And I think that was a big contributing factor to just being able to get by in life. Math, though, I still struggle with. My math skills are at a 3rd grade level. So I can multiply, but that's as far as I go. We were just getting into divisions and fractions when I dropped out of school. So even to this day, like, I'll still be counting on my fingers, and math is not my strong suit. I thought I'd come on here and talk about that because I've said it a few times about not having a proper education and only having a 3rd grade level education, and I thought it would be an interesting story for you guys. Why did that happen? And now you know. Do I regret it? No. Absolutely not. I think I had a much more interesting childhood that was different from other people. And different doesn't always mean good, but I feel like I didn't turn out bad. despite not having a proper education. I think there are moments that I wish that I did go to school. You know, there are things that I wish I was better at. Like math is definitely one of them. And I think I would have loved to be more part of like student activities like theater and band and all the kind of stuff that I liked. I really wanted to spend more time with my friends. I wanted to know what it felt like to have a graduation ceremony and to graduate and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't really regret not having a proper education, because while my friends were in school, like I said, I spent a lot of time writing and reading and spending a lot of quality time with my family as well. And I look back at that now, and it definitely, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And some of my best memories were those times between the time I was in 3rd to about 7th grade. Those 4 years, it was some of the best memories that I have. So I talked more than I thought I was going to, so I need to really sit and like no, I don't need to sit, I need to lay down. But I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Love you. Peace. Bye. Boop.